Hello and welcome to EE 254. I'm your instructor, Gregory Myers. In this video, we're going to take a look at some of the MATLAB fundamentals. This is part of a larger series that focuses on a refresher of the fundamentals in MATLAB and also gets you familiar with how we're going to cover the topics in this course. Specifically, we want to take a look at some of the help that we can rely on. And so, of course, you have the mathworks.com website, but you also have the ability to simply hit F1. The first time you run this, it's going to take just a second to pop up. But what this means is that you can type in a function. Now, let's say, for instance, the square root function, and you can hit F1, and the interactive help will pop up and gives you not only the description of the function, but also shows you the various overloads. In this case, the square root function doesn't have necessarily a lot to offer for us, but they also provide you some examples down here as well. So why don't we pick one that has some additional overloads, and one that we're actually going to take a look at in just a little bit anyway. That is going to be the rand_i function. And the rand_i function, uniformly distributed pseudo-random integers. We'll see in just a little bit what that's all about. But you'll notice that there are multiple ways to call this function. And so if you just type in the function name, whether it's in the script or in the command window, and hit F1, you can pull up the help. Additionally, if you go to the MathWorks website, you can start by just simply going to Google and typing in MATLAB and then a specific function name. I'll show you real quick what this pulls up. In this particular case, this pulls up the same help for the rand_i function. And you'll notice that for many of the core MATLAB features, if you simply just change the name of the URL, in this case, the name of the function from rand_i to rand_n, you'll see that you can pull up the help in the same way that you can interactively using F1. Now, the most important thing to notice here is that the help is very, very similar between the two, although typically on the website, they may have more recent versions of the help for newer versions of MATLAB. So you do want to be careful and make sure that, in fact, the version, the help that you are using is relevant to the version of MATLAB that you have installed. Now, continuing on with this, I've provided you some additional links that we want to take just a second to look at. That is the language fundamentals. And once again, this is sort of a aggregated link that provides you with some basics of getting started in MATLAB, talking about the environment, how MATLAB is laid out. I'll also touch on this in another video. And then also, if you go down further, you'll see focuses on things like different types of mathematics, particularly focused on the elementary math. And you'll see that there are the arithmetic operations. And it talks a little bit about the order of operations and so on, as well as something that you're probably not familiar with. That is the fact that MATLAB, in addition to these operators, also has the equivalent functions for things like sum, difference, multiplication, and so on. So there is the sum function, the diff function, the prod function, and so on. So just be aware that there are some additional functions, and we can also write our own should we see or deem it necessary. So if you take a look also, you'll see things like topics, complex numbers being covered. Different types of special functions. We'll actually touch on these later on. A little bit of discrete math. We'll definitely be looking at the polynomials and particularly the root finding. So this is just a treasure trove, if you would, of links. And what I would do is I would encourage you to just simply bookmark them. So for the elementary math, I'm just going to go ahead and bookmark this and call this done. And you can see here we've covered several of these already. Another link that you might want to consider bookmarking is the exponents and the logarithms page. And so you'll see here that on this page, then you'll cover things like the exp, which is the natural exponent, the log, which is the natural logarithm, log 10 is the log base 10, and so on. There's log base 2. We also see there's the nth root function as well as the square root. So once again, nice aggregation of different functions. We've seen the trigonometry one. This one right here, the special characters, is one that is useful and also is evolving slightly. You'll see that there are additional characters or operators that have been added over the years. The more you use MATLAB, the more you'll discover these things. But of particular interest to us is the fact that there is the asterisk for multiplication, matrix multiplication, and then you have the dot star for element-wise multiplication. And so we'll see that in just a little bit when we start dealing with scalars and vectors and arrays. Continuing on, you'll see a list of element-wise operators, including addition, subtraction, but also the element-wise power. So that's the dot caret, and once again, we will be using these quite extensively. And then the relational operators, these are the same as in several other languages, but the one thing to note is the not equals to, or the tilde equals to. And there's also a functional equivalent of that as well, and that is just simply the NE function. So you can right click on that and look, and you'll see that there is, in addition to the operator, there is also the NE function. So if in doubt, you can always use the functional equivalent. The logical operators, this is a very important thing to note here, is that we have the AND is a single ampersand. That's the logical AND. You can also see that there is a function for that, but there is, in addition to that, the logical AND with short circuiting, and that's the double ampersand, and then the equivalent pipe symbol for the or the double pipe symbol for the logical OR with short circuiting. What does short circuiting mean? Well, in a AND scenario, it means that if you have encountered a false, and remember that with an AND, all of the conditions have to be true. If you have, in fact, encountered a false when using the double ampersand, it stops execution of any additional conditions. Similarly, with an or rather the double pipe symbol for the or with the short circuiting, remember that an or must only have one true condition for the entire statement to be true. So in other words, once you've reached a true condition, then there's no reason to continue executing. So once again, there is a logical short circuiting there. And then of course, once again, the tilde or the not. So sometimes you will find yourself using the not function as well as the operator. And special characters, some of which that we're going to use quite extensively, is the ampersand, particularly to create a function handle. We'll do that quite a bit. The period or the dot has several different uses, obviously as a decimal point, but also for element-wise operations. And then later on, we'll actually see that it can be used for structural field and object access, although we're not likely to do much object property or method specification. So we aren't going to be doing fields and objects, or it's very, very unlikely that we will cover those or need to cover those. So continuing on, the dot's just simply a way to continue a code from one line to another. We will definitely do that. Just keep the screen width to a reasonable width. Comma just separates values. The colon allows for you to create a vector or a range of values, or in some cases, it will allow for you to specify all values in a vector or in a particular direction in an array. Semicolon is multiple uses, including suppression of output primarily, but it also allows for you to create multiple rows of data. So in other words, when you're concatenating two arrays together, you can separate rows, or two vectors together, you can separate rows to create a multi-row array. And we'll see that example in a little bit. The parentheses are the way that you access elements within a vector or array or make calls to a function. The square brackets just simply allow for you to concatenate vectors or arrays. We will see a handful of other examples of this, but the horse cat and the vert cat are the best examples, which we will cover. The curly braces are used for cell arrays, something that we will not use terribly often in this class. The main example that I can think of that we will use it is in plotting and in creating the legends. The percent sign is just simply a comment, or when it comes to the format spec, it allows for us to specify whether we have a integer, a double, string, character, and so on. And then the percent curly bracket is just simply used for blocks of comments. This approach right here of the percent, single percent, and the block comments will sort of be superseded by the syntax used for publishing. We're going to push publishing very much in this class. Exclamation point is a good example of that, is operating system commands, although it's very unlikely that we will be using that. The question mark, same, not something that we're going to handle too often. However, the single quotes we will, to specify a character or character vector, with the double quotes then specifying a string. We will be more likely to use the single quotes. NA for the, or rather, excuse me, for the space character, we'll definitely, we're definitely going to be using that when we create our vectors and our arrays, but better to see some practical examples of that. The tilde is the logical not. And the only other thing that I want to point out then is the string and character formatting, in that how you would, for instance, build paths on the file system. We will definitely be doing that. And I think that's pretty much about it. This little table down here is nice to know because this gives you some of the special characters with respect to the printf, sprintf, and just simply navigating also the file system. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick at our outline once again. The data types, this is a very, very important page. We'll be focusing mainly on the numeric data types in this class, particularly the fixed point data type. But specifically though, you want to get familiar with these various numeric data types, particularly the single and double precision, as well as the integer types. Lastly, the environment and settings. This has a couple of benefits here. Number one is it allows for you to control what functions are on your path, as well as things about your environment, how to set up the startup and shutdown. Also, occasionally you will find yourself needing to purge the path, and then things like the fonts. You can actually change the fonts in MATLAB. You can, of course, do this through the GUI, but everything you can do through the GUI in MATLAB, you can also do simply from the command line. So once again, I encourage you to take a copy of this .m file that I've provided for you and simply go through and bookmark all of the links that I've provided. The last thing that you'll notice is I've thrown out a couple of commands here. They're absolutely essential that you know, and that is going to be the CLC, which is going to clear the command window, and then clear, which is going to clear your workspace. Once again, I hope that you found this video useful. As always, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to email me, and thank you for watching.